Back into our playthrough of Koniggratz. This is turn 4, the last turn that the Austrians win the artillery duel. Here are our casualties. These are the permanents. You can see the Austrians are taking heavier losses than the Prussians. However, we got... I don't know if we have any permanent losses in here for the Prussians. No. So they're each going to get 2 back this turn and next turn. So nobody cost anybody any permanents due to blowing units. Mainly, as the battle gets smaller, I think that becomes harder to do. Just because there are less places where there's fighting, and the lines were kind of getting developed, although now the Prussians have gotten kind of a breakthrough down here. So maybe they'll be able to surround. However, the Austrians are doing quite well in the north, so I don't know. All right, let's start the beginning part of the turn. I have to... So far, I haven't done a single death ride. Probably wise. See, the problem with them is that if you don't succeed, and succeeding isn't defined here. If the attack is unsuccessful or a draw is 0. Yeah, so if you get the bonus in the total, if you force the other guy to retreat or anything, you win, and nothing terrible happens. But if you get unlucky on the dice roll, your cav is destroyed instead of just blown or retreated. So yeah, it's a little more risky. All right, let's see what we've got. Cav exhaustion. This guy's in a zone of influence. He doesn't unexhaust, and I think that's the only exhausted one I have. Headquarters placement. Well, you know my struggles with this. And now everybody's getting messed up. Alright, I'll have to try to figure out where those are going. It's not really absolutely clear to me what I want the Prussians to do, because I've got this interference running here, right? So if I put something up here, this could start causing me issues towards getting up into there. On the other hand, my forces are pretty scant up in the north. Very interesting factor, all I have in the north is a couple of cav. And that means I'm probably not going to attack with it. Which maybe means that I want to go with the movement functionality. And this guy's kind of locked in, but this guy's not. And he could get a lot more flexibility if I put that on movement. No, my placement has to be an empty hex. The headquarters must be placed within 3 hexes of a friendly unit which is currently not in an enemy zone of control. No, it's only an empty hex if I can't do that. And there's clearly something within 3 of this unit. If all my units were locked in combat, though, I would have a different issue. I'm going to place this one first, even though I feel like it's the trickier one to figure out where I'm placing it. Because, and I may push this a space back from there. Because this one telegraphs everything. Now the Austrians have to make kind of a hard choice, because they don't know where this is going, and have to figure out what to do. Well, that is probably pretty safe. This may be even wiser, because I'm probably not going to get pushed that far back. So I'll put that there. Which then forces the Prussians to declare what they're doing before the Austrians have to place their Benedict counter. For the Prussians, I think the hex rows work in my favor at this point, in the sense that I'm not directly, except here, going to be on a hex line, so most of the order of my advance may be a little bit more flexible than it's been in other turns. I still think there's something very wrong with that. And I think the easiest fix is, although, obviously I haven't play tested that, is to move towards the area of the control rather than towards the actual headquarters unit. Is my mindset is the Prussians are attacking, so I keep putting the attack counter further and further in their favor. It may be that they kind of want to stop fighting. I look at victory conditions, and each eliminated or blown unit is worth 1 plus their ER. Of course, there are no blown units, but I don't know what that's supposed to mean. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The Prussians could kind of pull back and defend, and they'd be in a good position. The real impetus right now is actually on the Austrians. They're behind. They're the ones who have to cause combat at this point. That feels a little weird, because, you want the historical results or something along those lines. And the Prussians have a lot more troops coming on. So it feels like they're still fighting. Of course, on this turn, it might have made sense to kind of withdraw from the fighting a little bit. But we're a gung-ho type of person. Oh, I have another command, which is going to come in at 4. Okay, I don't have letters on these. Okay, these come in at... These look like they're coming in from the north. So that's an interesting facet. Command, the Crown Prince, can go... I could keep him in movement functionality, give me more flexibility, but why? Stuff's coming in from the north, including E, I think. I might as well... Well, let's see what we got here. E, F. Oh, we got a D. Oh, they're coming in from all over the place. This is going to be painful if I don't make them mobile. Okay, so I've got a little bit coming in at E. And the danger with this is, if I put something up here, they're going to have to kind of cross up here, and they may not be able to. They're going to have to cross the stream. They're not willing to take the bridge because that would not be the shortest possible route to their headquarters. Again, even if you do the command zone thing, that becomes problematic. Although with a big enough command zone, you can probably play around and get something reasonable out of it. But I got guys from H who, want to get down here. And then D and F. D? Oh, geez. That guy's going to be pretty flexible no matter what. But yeah, I don't know what to do with this command. This one's... Like, if I don't put it in combat and I move close enough into combat, I'm going to regret that because I'm facing Benedict and other forces. I can put it on any empty hex in the game. I'll put it here in combat functionality. I probably don't want that in combat functionality, but that's where we're going. Okay. Blown units come back. Starting with the Prussian, it's not one at a time. So 2 Prussian units come back. An empty hex adjacent to a friendly headquarters that's not in an enemy zone of control. Can be any friendly headquarters. Well, maybe I fucked up. Yeah, I can't set up this way. Shit. Okay, knowing that, we have to change things. And I'm going to clear my headquarters command. So far, the Prussians have been able to continue launching their attacks because they didn't have blown units coming in. But with blown units coming in, I got to make sure that I can bring stuff in. And okay, in any empty hex adjacent to a friendly headquarters. Okay, so here there's a lack of parentheses that doesn't make it clear to me. Is it any empty hex adjacent to a friendly headquarters where the headquarters is not in an enemy zone of control or enemy zone of influence, or where the empty hex is? Without parentheses, it's hard to tell. Not parentheses. Well, parentheses would work too, but without commas, it's hard to tell. Blown units in any empty hex adjacent to a friendly headquarters that is not in an enemy zone of control or enemy zone of influence. I got to use logic here. So, and we'll pull everything off because obviously we needed to know this before we placed anything. So, the empty hex not being in an enemy zone of control or zone of influence means that the headquarters has to be even further back. And I think that's what I'm going to go with. I'm not sure that's what's meant. So, for example, if the headquarters was back here, and it's empty hex not in an enemy, next to the headquarters not in an enemy zone of influence, that I'm not going to find anymore, right? Well, I will, because these are just cav and they don't have a zone of influence, so I could put things back here. If the headquarters can't be in a zone of control or zone of influence, that causes all kinds of problems. That forces my headquarters to be someplace way back. And by doing that, I slow the whole command force. Now, I think this is the one that I want not to be, and there's no harm if I put this in mobile formation. I don't get any command bonus, any combat bonus at all. If I put this in combat formation, at least this guy gets some kind of bonus, as do any replacements that I have. Now here's the thing. If the headquarters can't be in a zone of influence, now I can put stuff in front of my headquarters. If the unit couldn't be, I could have put my headquarters further forward and built the units further back, I think. So, for example, I could do something like this, and the units could be back behind the river. It doesn't make a hell of a lot of difference. Either way, okay, I could do this, actually, which I think is why I don't want the headquarters in a zone of influence. Because if I do that, then I can put the units back here, and they're not in a zone of influence, because those are only cav in my way. So I'm going to force the Prussians. I'm going to follow the The headquarters can't be in a zone of influence, which I think forces me to place things further back. So I'll put that one there, and now the Austrians get to respond. Probably pretty much the same stuff I was doing. This is not close enough. Headquarters would be in a zone of influence. That's no good. Can't do that. Back here I can do, but that forces me to a greater fallback than I was thinking I was going to be. Now, alternatively, I could do this and use Benedict. There's nothing that says you have to go to the right command, so maybe I'll do that. All right, so now we go to the second Prussian one. That's this one. These guys are here. Okay, those guys are both red, and I feel like they're covered by this, which means I can try to press here. There's no harm in that. Headquarters is just not in a zone of control. Hexes of a friendly unit which is not in a zone of control. So that goes here. And, you know, that's worded the same way, and I had no problem with that. It was the unit that's not in the zone of control, right? The headquarters must be placed within 3 hexes. No, because it doesn't say in a hex within 3 hexes. See, that's the difference. Here it says the headquarters must be placed within 3 hexes of a friendly unit which is currently not in an enemy zone of control. There's only one possible subject here, which is the friendly unit which is currently not in a zone of control. Here, blown units return in any empty hex, that's a possible subject to the clause. Adjacent to a friendly headquarters, another possible subject, that is not in an enemy zone of control or enemy zone of influence. I'm going to go, again, with locality. I think that's the most likely meaning, and reason seems to pull that out. But again, not very, very specific. If this is all lifted from Mark Herban, you know, his games aren't getting quite the level of bulletproofness that the big published games that he puts out through GMT tend to be. Okay. So, and maybe there's errata somewhere, but you'd think that would have made its way into this. So that gives me the second Austrian command. And again, I got to worry about not getting this in a zone of influence. 1, 2, see, this doesn't work. 1, 2, 3. Has to be an empty hex, which means there can't be anything there, so I can't put it on top of the Prussian headquarters, which is already there. Which is probably exactly where I wanted it. Damn Prussians. Okay, now I'm back to this thing, which I think I can do whatever I did with it. Which it can be in any empty hex on the board, no matter what. Oh, no. This did not have to be in an empty hex. Sorry. We knew that. Must be placed within 3 of a friendly unit that's not in an enemy zone of control. Yeah. So I can put this headquarters here. And that means this one, I don't know. This has to go in an empty hex, but it can be in an enemy zone of control. And again, I'm going to put this like this on its combat side. Trying to figure this out, like, within all the restrictions and what all the implications are, this is killing me, and it's making the command phase exceedingly painful. Just the same way that the movement phase, when I had to try to face what the implications of where those headquarters are, started to really cause me problems. Now this is beginning to really cause problems as well. And it's just because I'm doing something that's a gamey mechanical aspect that doesn't really suit my understanding of anything. Like, when I try to think about the headquarters, I'm thinking, well, go here. Well, go here doesn't matter whether there's an enemy there, how close I am to my own units shouldn't really affect me. So the fact that, here's what's screwed up. If my units are not in an enemy zone of control, I have to put the locus of my direction of assault within 3 hexes of one of my units. And that's the only real limitation. If my units are all in an enemy zone of control, I can put the locus of my focus, the focus of my locus? I don't know. As far away as I like. That does not make sense. It should just, if there's a limitation to how far you can go, and obviously these guys who are off the map, yeah, okay, I don't mind that they're being told gather here, and here doesn't really matter where it is. But I do mind that if I'm already engaged in combat, a combat that I or they or my opponent could withdraw from, I can create orders to go, because I see these as kind of orders, to go as far away as I like. Now, would I want to do that? Probably not. I probably want the combat star to affect the general locality that I'm in. But it does seem a little weird, the restrictions there. I've got to swap batteries. Now we're back to the blown unit return, and I'll get to that after I swap. The units have to go adjacent. The big question is where I want my 2-star. Do I want him more far forward where he can have the most impact? Or do I want him in back as kind of a reserve that I can do more with? And I don't know the answer to these things. Because this guy could get locked in combat, but I really don't want to lose the 2-star unit. So I'm going to place like that. And now the Austrians get to place there too. I want to protect as much as I can the line here. And then the Benedict one, well, I'm going to place him here. No restriction against... So the restriction is an either or, right? Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. I can't place that there. Hold on, I just fucked up royally. I fucked up everywhere with the Austrians. Son of a bitch. Okay, let's give them a chance here. So let's look again. Adjacent to one that's not in an enemy zone of control or enemy zone of influence. So I could not place this here and have it serve as a reinforcement location. And I could not place this here and serve as a reinforcement location. There was a reason for doing it the way I had it. So yeah, so this will go here to protect, and this, Jesus, I don't know. I want to cover more. This gives me sort of zone interlocking zones or whatever. Maybe that helps here. So far we haven't seen much of that in play. Now I go to Austrian bombardment, and I just don't have the will to try to figure out, is this possibly useful? So far I've burned my brain on this a few times, and I've said no. And I think I will say no again. I could force a unit to retreat. I can't think of it. I'm not willing to hurt myself and try to see if there's some edge case out there right now where I think it's useful. I'm not saying that, it's possible that I'm completely missing something important about that being able to place a zone of control and or force a unit to retreat. But so far, I just can't justify using the artillery in that fashion. I don't see it having much impact at all. And then I do see an impact in combat. So, all right. So now we play with everything not in an enemy zone of influence is flipped over. Okay. So this is now in a zone because these guys got placed here. When do we unblow cavalry? Or we already did that. Okay. All right. These guys are not in a zone of influence. Did I know that? Fuck. Yep, this guy is. This guy, it doesn't matter. He's already on that side. Now, he may get flipped. He is... So hard to tell because it's like... some things will be in battle formation, some things won't at this point, even though they're in a zone of influence. Because of, like, this guy was placed on his mobile side. There's no zone of influence back here. So even though he's in a zone of control, he is able to unflip. Now, he may be forced back into it. Yeah, any unit in an enemy zone of control must remain on its battle formation or must be flipped to its battle formation roll. Yeah. Okay, so I'm not gonna unflip this guy just to flip him. The rules allow me to do that, but that's not really useful. So I think this is where we're at. I'm not sure. And the reason this guy's not in an enemy zone of influence is there's a cav here. This should prevent you from doing it on an enemy zone of control. I know this a lot, but I hate that idea of, oh, I unflip it, now I flip it back. Like, if you're following it as a procedural cookbook type thing, which I feel you kind of have to, because again, there's a lot of not counterintuitive stuff happening in this game. Then you're left with kind of, well, that was kind of a waste that I did both those things. Okay, so now if you're in an enemy zone of control or enemy zone of influence, you must flip back. Okay, well, now everything flips. These are not. That's a cav unit. This one's fucked. This one's fucked. This one's not. Again, the headquarters causing their usual problem. Now the Prussian player can pick a unit in an enemy zone of control and retreat it. And it stays in battle formation. Kind of think I want to do that. I kind of think I want to get this cav out of there. So this is a retreat. I believe that's going to be a 3-hex retreat. Somewhere there's something about 2-hex retreats. So 1, 2, 3 I can do. Because this gets me out of the zones. So I can just retreat across swamp. I think maybe I can't retreat across swamps. Units cannot attack. Units forced to are eliminated. Yeah, well, we don't want to do that. 1. Well, we got a problem. Maybe we can't retreat. Because we can't retreat back here. And oh, this isn't a swamp over here. 1, 2, 3, I think, is legitimate. Okay. All right, so that was a Prussian unit that retreated. Does that blow anything? Now the Austrians could retreat, but they have nothing in a zone of control, so they're done. This took fucking forever to get through the command phase, and I am on the movement phase, and maybe come back at some later time. I have an interview today, and just trying to burn some time before that, because it got put way later than I I like things to be, it blows my whole day. So like I asked them, hey, how about after 10 a.m. in the morning? You know, giving them like 3 days of choices. And by the time like anything was understood and they sent me an actual date and time, after passing, you know, on 2 other days, they put it at, you know, 1 p.m. on Monday. And so, you know, my whole Monday is shot because I, of course, am in panic mode and whatever and unable to do anything until before it. And I mean, it probably shoots me in the ass no matter what, because then I have to recover from dealing with another human being, but even over phone. And I know nothing's going to come of it because I suck at interviews, because I hate, you know, they disrupt my whole existence too much. The other thing is I could have slept late, but I had to set my alarm. My alarm clock is fucked up, so like I have trouble changing. It's an old style one, and I have trouble setting it. Basically, it's set at 9, so that's what I live with. It used to be set at 7. That's what I lived with. And I don't ever change the go forward, go back shit on any of my clocks. It used to be just my alarm clock didn't change. Now it's all of them because I don't give a shit to do so, and nobody else is around to do them. That gets us to the pulsing of movement. Again, something that feels a little funny in the system, forcing you to bring your reinforcements on first. I'm not trying to figure out the implications of that across the board, but one of them is definitely you're handcuffed. Your reinforcements coming in one at a time mean that the enemy can really react better. So it's almost as though your reinforcements are causing some issues at the front lines where, you know, you're almost forced to be in a very much off the initiative when they're coming in. Anyway, I'll start bringing. I'll start the movement, I guess. Still haven't had my interview yet. I'm fucking tired as hell too. Honestly, whatever movements you do, you have to be really, really careful. So my command is here. I got guys who come in here. I want to keep them as far south as possible, so that keeps me some flexibility. Likewise, these guys, I want to keep them as far north as possible so that they have flexibility to move forward. Because if I ever get down into this column, I'm screwed, right? There's certain pieces of ground that if you get onto, you're now stuck on a highway that, you know, you might not be able to move because you strayed a little bit in one direction or another. The geometry is just so painful. I can't see any real reason why I want to bring in something other than something else. Although I think the unit from H is a little dangerous, so I'm going to hold off on that. But maybe I need that coming around the back quicker. I don't know. Just how handcuffed the Prussians are gives me some capability with the Austrians to now move up into more defensive positions that I wouldn't have been normally allowed to do. So, you know, for example, I can move this cav maybe around so that I have room to slowly move somebody into this town. Do I need to be there? I don't know. You know, again, I don't know if I should be attacking or defending, but I don't really feel like I have a tremendous advantage on attack, but maybe I do. See, my headquarters, I can launch an attack from here. I can't get up here because they've pulled back so far that I don't really feel like I have a lot of capacity to shift my forces around a great deal. Much of an advantage the Austrians were able to take out of, you know, the Prussians being locked, waiting for their reinforcements to move forward. You know, for example, I had that option of trying to move this cab out of the way so I can move the infantry, but I kind of need this infantry here. So I'm trying to build myself some sort of defensive perimeter. I don't know if a defensive perimeter makes any sense The way the game kind of works out so far has been, you want a big mass of force to just like, that provides you the best defense, is a big solid mass that can like counterattack, you know. But I'm not under pressure, so I feel like I want to try to create something that looks sort of like a standard, you know, defensive line in a war game. But I don't know if that's going to do me a damn bit of good, because it doesn't seem to fit what I want. Maybe I just wanted a little clump with some space to retreat back from. Maybe I should have been attacking, but again, I didn't see much advantage to that at this point. Of course, you know, the Prussians can just sit on the game and say, we win. Myself in one of those kind of pathological situations I was worried about. It's not entirely. The Prussians have their goals. They have this large force that they want to move forward. But the Austrians kind of don't want to give the Prussians a ton of moves that are unanswered. I have sort of this reserve. But that reserve's not useful unless I keep moving a piece. On the other hand, if I just stop, the Prussians are clearly able to choose their battles because I've spread the Austrians out so much. And again, I think spreading out it was a terrible idea. It feels so natural, right? Claim out some area and take defensive terrain and make sure that there's some support. But support is not what you would think it is as a wargamer, you know, which is really just ingrained habits of a particular type of geometry that doesn't necessarily reflect reality. Where this may actually do a better job of it, it's hard to tell. Shortly afterwards, I bit the bullet. I moved up here against this cav. I'm going to try some attacks. Now the Austrians are passing. The Prussians get a die roll plus, God knows, 1, 2, 3... zone of control, I think. Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, no, 7. Looks like a unit. 8, 9, 10. A die roll plus 10. I don't know if you can go above 19. I mean, nothing says you can't, but in terms of like how possible it would be. So that gets me to 12 remaining moves for the Prussians to now land their blow. They weren't really delaying. The Austrians were the ones playing delay of game. What the Prussians were kind of, and not for much, what the Prussians were kind of doing was bringing their back fields forward, moving the front forward so that there's room to move, because there's no stacking even during movement. And yeah, you know, now it's time though to bring enough forces to bear to launch these attacks. In position, the Prussians did something I think is a little weird, but I moved this cav up here to protect in here, because what I've noticed is heavy units like this have a way of being able to bust up my forces. Now, retreat through swamp is impossible though, so I kind of cut my retreat path, which might be a worse result. But I'm getting more defensive bonus out of it. All right, let's look at the attacks in order what I want to do. I probably want to chisel around the edges of this so that that's less of a hammer blow. I think that's going to be my primary focus. This is not a unit, so don't think of it as one. Okay, so let's make an attack on here. 1, 2, this is going to be the center of my attack. 3 for the star, 4 for the cav to +1. That Austrian unit is in a lot of trouble. I'm at +3 for the Prussians right now. I think the Austrians want to throw in artillery to try to defend themselves. I'm just going to pump that in. The Prussians chose not to. So that goes down to a +1, which is still problematic. And we look So that's a 2-point advantage. Unit with the lower result must retreat, otherwise it's blown. Can't retreat through anything. So we're out of there. And this guy marches forward. Now this guy's cut out of the battle, but it's okay. And that puts it on the Austrian side. Well, the Austrians have one attack that they've kind of really set up very well. This is not something I can attack. Got to keep reminding myself. So +2, +3 against this cav at +1. So the Austrians are at +2. Make it +3, +4. I've got this headquarters in there. So the Austrians are at +4. Prussians are going to spend an artillery to protect themselves, dropping that to +2. Austrians don't want to spend one because they know they're the advantage either way. This is not in range, so no advantage there. So 7 to 3 is 4. It blows it. But now I must advance, which is the problem with attacking. I can't make attacks just to knock out the enemy's capability to hit me. I have to continue on. Does that do me any harm? Well, I don't know. Got a potential attack up here. What would we be getting there? 1. Flank infantry support. How is that defined? Just being in per infantry unit in the enemy zone of control. So this will count. So 1, 2, 3, 4 for the headquarters to 4 for this. That's not really good. But I can hurt the Austrians. So I'm going to go in there at 0 and spend an artillery. The Austrians are also going to spend the artillery because this is vital. And so we have an artillery duel. The Prussians win it, so they're now at +2 for the battle. They did not roll a 6, so I have to try to remember. They get a 2. That's going to force this unit to retreat. It has nowhere to go. It's blown. And if I can blow another unit, that means I can kill a 2-star. But this unit gets to advance. Puts me over on the Austrians. Well, it's beginning to look kind of ugly for us. This isn't a unit that's not blocking anything. This isn't a unit that's not able to attack. It's just really hard for me to see all that. And again, they just look too much like regular units. Now, one of the reasons they look too much like units is they appear to be they're linked to a particular command, so they got to look kind of like that command, which is why I've got you got to kind of keep it the same kind of color pattern and everything. I'm not sure a shape is going to help. Maybe no symbol on them would help. Maybe a big blank in the middle would be enough to alert you. I just don't know. They sure would look funny that way, but I think the Austrians are done attacking, which means the Prussians get a die roll worth of attacks, which is going to be 4. And we're going to try to carry these out. This isn't doing me any good. Like, it's not supporting anything, so we'll make an attack here at 2, 3, 4. Oh, I don't get this, though. Whereas this one would. And I kind of like him moving down this way or not. I don't know. I really don't know. Either way, I've got a 4. And this is going to have +1 for terrain, +3. So that just gets me to +1. Not really a worthwhile attack. Let's look elsewhere. Here's not impressive. Here, 2, 3, 4 to 4. And again, not terribly impressive. Okay, we'll go up here. I don't even know if we want to attack. That was 2, 3, 4 to 3. So I'm at +1. I do not want to throw artillery in. It would be nice to blow something, though. All right, odds for both of them. The Prussians throw an artillery in. So instead of +1, they're at +3. They get an 8 to 3 is going to be a 5 or more. We eliminate this unit, and we attacked with this one, I guess. I don't know. Okay. I'd still like to force them to lose another unit due to blowing it, but this is a 0. This is down. And that doesn't seem worth it, and I don't see any other attacks. Like, defensive artillery or whatever could come in and make my day really ugly. Offensive artillery, you know, might just force a retreat, which doesn't really get me anything. So that's going to be end of turn. And that means we is done. And that didn't take too long. All right. Well, the interview was enjoyable, but it burns me out to talk to anyone. I talked for over an hour, which is a good sign. But I still have other parts of it to go through. And other good news, the guys who I bought the toilet regulator or whatever it's called from are refunding my money. I threw part of that money back into hey, just, you know, send me a couple of washers. No, is it washers? Yeah, I think so. I don't know. Whatever the hell they are. Gaskets. They're not washers. Because I think that's where my problem was with my old one. Because when I put the gasket on the new one, it eventually acted like my old one. Of course, there may be other problems, but they certainly sent me a defective piece because it did not have the gasket inside it. So, I guess I'm going to do this turn, and I guess I'm doing 2 turns per video after that first one because I chatter so much. And we're at the beginning of turn 5. Prussian dominate the artillery duels now. Both sides have kept some artillery. I could see burning it all. There's nothing, you know, that stops you except it's a limited resource. But it might be worth burning early in order to get more units into the dead pile or to overload the blown units restriction. So it's kind of a hard call. Do you save your limited resource, or do you overwhelm the enemy with it so that you have less to face of their regular units? Exhaustion recovery. Let me get this shit off the board because it's just confusing me. They don't have to be there now, and okay. So now things look a lot easier. It's very clear. This is not going to be exhausted. I thought I exhausted a Prussian one, but maybe I killed one. No. All right. Now we're on the headquarters placement. And we got more units coming in. Let me get them over here. All coming in H and G. G? E, F, gotta be there, yeah. So we got more of this white army coming in. Yeah, I'd say the Austrians are in a whole lot of trouble right now. And again, the Prussians could just sit on their hat at this point. I gotta think. It's really hard to figure out. And you also have to think about the order you want to place them in, right? Again, I put one down. That reveals something. I have to go first. The Austrians are in a more reactive situation. One is going to be this. I need one to allow me to bring these guys in. And he's outside of the zone of influence, which means I can drop a unit right there, if I so desire. But also, I'm putting him on movement. I do have one good unit that would make a good lead unit, but it looks like there's a big gap up there. And, yeah, you know, I want to be able to move. I figure this is the unit that's in charge of those, or this is the headquarters that's in charge of those units. So I'll use that for this. I don't have to. And that's sort of that's the step I don't want to go to. I don't want to think about, hey, should I be using this one in the back? I'm going to be able to put two of them as leading units this way. I've got a lot of forces coming in the board from this new unit here, from the new army. This army's stronger. This one's a little weaker. It's taking the hits. So let's use its headquarters as my mobility one with the ability to shift to either side. The deck was easy to choose. From here he can command all his units and give them their 2-star defense, and they can fall back into position as needed. That all looks perfect. Crown Prince Friedrich was my next pick for the Prussians. I'm putting it on the attack side because you got to use attacks as far as I'm concerned. I'm putting it here. This is a little iffy. It's outside of zones of control. It's allowed to be. No, wait, no. I can move it closer. I can put it here. This is a big deal. So the fact that this unit's outside of zone of control, 3 hexes to it, it's allowed. This is a huge deal. Back here I did not like, because then I couldn't control attacks on this unit from that headquarters. But pushing it up one, now I can take attacks from the north on that one. I can make an attack on this if need be. And at least one of my new units is a 2-star. 2 stars are gold, so yeah. Glad I caught that. I keep forgetting who has to be who can't be in a zone and who has to be, who's allowed to be. To the Austrian one, again, easy. 2 units in control. Yeah, I don't have a lot of flexibility in my command, but Benedict is here. He can shift things down that way. And I think I need at least this defensive line. I don't know. That may not be enough. Final Prussian one, right under this infantry. Because 1, 2, 3, and that gives me a locus of control where I can direct my effort against those red units as needed. We'll see how it plays out. Blown unit return. That's these guys. I think Prussians have to go first. Yeah, and it's not alternating here. So here the question is, do I want to put something right up against that cav, or is there some advantage to me to having more flexible movement? I've already got that cav pinned, so I'm going to put these guys both back here. And now we look at the Austrian ones. And got to look at the terrain. This is not well protected. Let's put a crappy unit there. I don't know. I'm not thrilled. Wait, this may not be allowed. Hold on, I may have screwed up. Friendly headquarters that is not in an enemy zone of control or influence. So this was not a good place. This is a good place. I'm going to allow them to shift this. And that will let me do this instead. Now, that's going to cause the march formation, battle formation choices to change from what they appeared to be. Perhaps. No, this is not Prussian. Between the two units. Yeah. And I will flip those over as best as I can. So like this guy's in March, but that's right. I ran into some problems again. Forgetting Cav don't have a zone of influence. So these guys back here, well, this guy would have been okay anyway. But these guys were, you know, I would have flipped them to ones if that was an infantry there. They're not protected behind the line. I guess I didn't do any artillery bombardment. Again, I can't think of a way to use it. So, and now, do we want to leave zones of control? The Prussians like that they've got units pinned, but the Austrians may not want to be pinned here. I've got this unit that could move up there. On the other hand, I'm in some tough terrain. Now, if I didn't want to give up ground, I definitely would want to stay up here. But I'm not sure I want to stay up there. So I think I will fly back. 1, 2, 3. So goofy that you cover the other guy's headquarters to me. It just feels weird. All right. That's going to put me on the movement phase. And I am going to take another break because the amount of thinking that goes into this part of it. I mean, this part of it defines what the movement is likely to be. And I'm not planning it all out entirely. You're hearing, you know, what planning I'm making. But you could certainly do a whole lot more. Like, I want to move here, I want to move there. I'm just trying to make sure that I don't screw anything up and I express my general will. I don't think you can do much more than that. Like, most of these choices were within... There might be a 1 hex differential as to where I might put something. This piece, yeah, I had to put this back here so I got these reinforcements. I don't like that. I liked the flexibility that the other location had because I'm not going to go any further forward than this, I think, but that's okay. And I'll put this here too. I came down last night, I had convinced myself to come down and play, but then I was just too fatigued. I looked at it and I'm like, yeah, I can't do from the movement phase on. Today, I went to a meeting with my unemployment people. I'm glad that I didn't do it as a video call. It was nice to get out of the house and out of my chair. And I ended up buying some food, not enough for, you know, a normal shopping trip. Mainly goodies, treats, neat things, cheeses and meats and stuff. Expensive shit, but you know, when I go on my normal shopping trips, same brand of store, not as good a one, but I just end up buying the exact same things almost every time, and that's not right. And I got some of my robin things there. I think they're robins. They look very much like them, but they're a little different from the northeastern ones. All right, so we'll start with the movement phase, and I'll probably go back to cussing and griping. Designer got back to me. This is kind of for the designer, so I should just, you know, but more people are watching it, seeing what's going on, and is considering the idea of putting some victory point hexes. I don't know how important that is. The only thing that I do know is that there's, at this point at least, no real reason for the Prussians to push forward. If defense worked well, and I'm not sure it does, but if a defensive line worked well, they could fall back to one. They could also flee from the Austrians and, you know, kind of pocket a victory Maybe not on this turn, but with a couple of turns, there's enough room that they could run away from the Austrians. Remember, when you withdraw from combat, you get a couple of hexes of retreat, and then everybody's kind of already locked into their combat formation, whatever it is, and so things only move one hex. It's possible you could chase somebody, but it's not a trivial game to do so. But certainly if they found themselves a nice defensive line in some good terrain, it looks like you might be able to do it here. Might run down and try to get down to Koniggratz or something like that. You could probably kind of just put the game in your pocket. I'm not sure though, because again, defense may not be as easy as offense. I've been having trouble forming good defensive lines in this game and getting the support right and whatnot, mainly because as the defender, eventually you want to pass, and then you hand off a bunch of moves to the attacker. Or you could just keep piddling back and forth and keep the turn going until the attacker passes. But then they will get all their stuff up into positions that they want. So it's hard as the defender to build a reactive defense. You end up getting pinned. The reason that I cursed a lack of victory point objective hexes or anything like that is well, I don't know what to do. I have nothing to really motivate me to launch an attack, but holy shit. Well, that's a different sound than I'm used to here. And you know, now that I start to see how you launch attacks, etc., and how you manipulate into that, I'm not sure it's that necessary. I think maybe it was more just being unfamiliar with the system. And a second time playing, I would probably feel more comfortable just launching attacks, trying to get an advantage on someone. However, the game is a tie at the beginning of the game. And the Prussians could form a river line just like the Austrians would like to, and then we'd maybe have a draw unless the Austrians wanted to push the issue closer. Anyway, starting to think about the Prussian position, I think their first move is going to be to here. And the reason for that is I want my majority of my forces to move up to where the Austrians are relatively strong, etc. But this cav moving into here, first of all, I can do it all at once and just pin this unit in place. And now I can kind of ignore it. Yeah, it can attack and probably at advantages, definitely at advantages, but it's cav, it'll probably run away. And a couple more moves. The Prussians cross the river with a big unit, get it in close where it can play. I don't know how wise that is. Austrians fiddled around, fell back to here, which is like a one space withdrawal or something like that, before this guy moved. And not that it matters much because it's only one space. And moved a cav just over to try to create a more dense support for their units. I'm looking at the Austrians really aren't going to have a lot of opportunities for counterattack. But whatever, they're not going to get the reactive capabilities that they need at this point. And now I think the Prussian... Oh, I'm back on the Austrians. I think the Prussian main goal is pin Austrian units down and then start bringing forces up to attack. The main Austrian plan is react to get reinforcements where they're needed. These guys are in towns. This guy's not, but he got pinned. Pity. But these guys are in towns. I don't want to move them from them. This guy is too. And so I've got a couple of cav units that I can kind of fiddle around. And you know, the question really comes down to this one. Does it go here, where it supports these two? or here where it supports these two. I'm not sure. And then I'll probably pass after that. The Austrians are passing, which means we make a quick count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Plus a die. I get 17 actions to bring the Prussian attack forward. That seems like plenty, but remember, you don't move up against a unit with one action except for cav. So you can move within, and some people are stuck in battle formation that I'd really like to get up there. So maybe I take 2 more actions to get him up anyway. 7 of those actions to prepare myself up here. And now I've got this, whatever, Prince Friedrich Karl, his army. I don't have the numbers of the armies on these units, which is fine. But I won't remember whose army, you know, what number his army is. That would be a useful force, but it is not under combat readiness, which means I kind of want to rely more on these other units, but this thing is not going to be able to do anything except pin this, which it's already passed, so that's not really necessary. So I can really kind of get 1 more unit in here. If I put the +2 in there, I'm putting them at risk. But anyone else will take multiple movement points to get up there. I may also want to position my cav for defense, because somehow or another cav is better on defense. Behind the lines. It adds a point where infantry can't. Now, on defense, and it's useful on defense where infantry isn't. Nothing, you know, there's no advantage to having supported lines except the enemy isn't going to have additional infantry or cav up against you. I screwed up. I see this unit is up here. If it moved from this line forward as opposed to from here forward, it is doing something illegal. I don't remember if it did or not. I'll leave it as it is. It's in a stupid location now because it doesn't, you know, get the star from leadership. And remember, you kind of don't want to attack or risk units that have more stars if you can get the same values otherwise, because they count as extra victory points over here, the stars do. So yeah, still working. Yeah. All right, here's a screw up. These guys did not move on the map as their first moves, so I'm going to take the next few moves to move them on. I can't roll things back. There's just no way. Yep. With my bitchy, you didn't hear him. He was bitching his head off. But that's why they're bitchies. They're my signature bird here. So yeah, I brought those guys on, and that leaves me with only 2 movement actions left, and not a lot of stuff that I can really do with it. I've got a, you know, big line here, and these guys moved here. There might have been some slight differences, but I think this is certainly a plausible thing that could have happened. It's also possible, though, that maybe I pulsed in and locked this cav into place. Well, no, it wouldn't be in the zone because it's across the bridge. So, yeah, I couldn't really do anything about it. This unit might have been flipped over to its one side, as I guess. Well, no, you can't leave a zone of control no matter what. So, no, there is no zone of control. Yeah, so it would have still been mobile. It could attack across the bridge if the cav stayed. That's what the consequences are. We didn't see a lot of fighting along the river line here, so that's not an issue. I don't know what I want to do with my remaining pieces. It kind of doesn't matter. They don't have anywhere to go. There's a little bit of danger to creating dense formations, and I'm a little worried about that. But on the other hand, I also want to be able to advance. The problem with dense formations is if I get a retreat result, I may end up blown instead. So I don't know, but I think I'm going to do that as well. That's going to put me into the attack phase, and we take a break because I just can't play. I can't play my war games for more than a little bit of time, and as soon as I get to a point that I've kind of defined as, yeah, that's a good enough break, I want to walk away. This doesn't happen to me in like 18xx, although maybe it kind of does. You know, I play an operating round and I walk away, but those are longer. But then again, so are turns in, you know, when I did Leipzig recently. Those turns are longer and I had to walk away multiple times during them. So, I don't know. To start a couple of the combats, you know, on my way back from my tasks, I stopped at a bar that I hit every now and then. They have a Taco Tuesday thing. I try to arrange my trips out of the house of this nature to Tuesdays. Even though I had a backpack full of groceries, I said, screw it, you know. It'll keep. It's not that warm out. It's not that cold out either, although it's cold down here, so. All right. So Prussians get first shot. We take a look and see what is vital. Where do we really want to launch our first hit? We got a problem. These two cav are going to cause us issues if we're not careful. But, well, 3 cav actually. And they're mutually supporting. So, like, you know, this one has 2 support on it. And each of these has 1 support from cav. Add to that the commander ratings. This is not going to be trivial to bust our way into. Gloves off. I can't move the pieces and what, even though they're fingerless, which seemed like a brilliant idea. Actually, what it is I can't roll the dice right. Okay, so I'm looking at the situation and going right against the cav. I don't have enough strength to do that. So I think I'm going to peel into here. That's this command. Shit. And that's the unit that's not in the right place. Son of a bitch. So I would be +1, +2, +3, +4 versus +4. It's not going to get me the angle I want. The white down here, 1, 2 against 1, 2, 3, 4, right? We're having a really hard time and finding this kind of attack. On the other hand, we got forces coming. We've got a lot of the Austrians kind of pinned. Yes, they can retreat, but maybe we don't attack because I've got good terrain here. That's not terrain. This no. Is this? Gotta look on your checks. The pieces are so big. Of course, they're about the same size, you know, as the smaller pieces on smaller hexes are. I just, it's hard to see where the defensive terrain is because it doesn't really fill the hex. But it's prettier than, like, it's possible you could do something like the old Victory in the West, at least Operation Grenade had, where they put these big, nasty outlines around the hexes that gave a defensive bonus. Ooh, that was ugly as shit. I think I'd rather miss some. Yeah, I'm having a hard time finding an attack I want to make. This command doesn't give any bonuses. Let's see what we can get here. Let's say, well, we'd have +1, +2, +3, +4, +5. That seems pretty powerful. To +1, +2, +3, +4, +5, +7. Don't want to do that. Wow. You know, making the 0 attack just doesn't seem like a good idea. So I think the Prussians are going to pass right off the bat. And that gives me 5 Austrian attacks if I want them. Now, the Austrians have a tough time finding attacks too. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to 2. I got a +3 attack. And the Prussians are in a bit of a bind here. Okay. Austrians are definitely not firing artillery. Let's give odds on the Prussians, but they don't feel very happy. They're beginning to wish they hadn't moved to contact. Okay, so they are not firing either. So what did I say? It was like +3? Something like that. +1, +2, +3, +4, +5 to +1. Yeah, I'm at +4. Wow. That's 9 to 5. What a way to make a living. That's going to blow. However, the Austrians have to advance, and that may disrupt their defenses. It doesn't matter, though. Prussians can't attack anymore. They didn't make any single attack. So now we look again for the Austrians. And I'm guessing we have a possible attack here. Right, the problem is the Prussians don't have all that cav. It's all that cav that's like milling around behind the lines that's somehow producing this tremendous defensive capability for the Austrians, getting all clumped together like that. Which, that kind of clumping is like, oh, I would never think of that anymore. in you know, what feels like kind of an operational style game, not operational level. It's definitely a battle, but operational style in the sense that like a lot of the operational games use something that looks kind of like this. Kind of like your old classics and stuff, and it's actually really not working at all in those same ways. So I don't have as much power going against something like, oh, I used some cav. These guys are fatigued now. They have blown their wad, which means I think the Austrians can't launch another viable attack. I could plink against something like this, but that would give up my defensive terrain. So I think that's it for the turn. We push this here. I have a suspicion that I've used up a fair amount of video on this one. And, you know, I was talking about two turns for every video. We did the first one, then two, then two. So I think we'll call this one Loaded Up. Plus, I know the designer wants more more quickly, so it seems perfectly reasonable to me to get this one up. I don't know how much more is going to happen at the end game, but yeah, it's beginning to look like the Prussians don't really want to push this attack any further. They've got the opponent surrounded and, you know, tightly bunched, and that is a horrible situation to be in. To be attacking a tightly bunched opponent in this. There's an interesting game mechanism going on here, but I'm more and more becoming convinced that this is not actually a really valid representation of the kind of combat it has. It might be kind of nice to hear from people who've played the Mark Herman games, you know. But this feels really, really wrong. Like the idea that if you clump the enemy together, they get, if they have cav, they get so many defensive bonuses. Now, that counterattack, that blows the wad, it's over. But basically, instead of surrounding a bunch of troops, forcing them to surrender, you surround a big clump like that, and it becomes really, really hard to fight. Now, it's going to get a little better when we get this command back in place. We might be able to pick off things off the edges and then work our way in. But right now it's ugly, and we'll see how the last two turns play out and whether they help. You know, this may just be some kind of pathological and unlikely situation.